right, welcome back for another episode of Dollar Bin Digging. This is the video and article that I do for comicbookinvest.com, where I talk about those books that are probably still tucked away in those cheap boxes, those discount bins, your dollar boxes at your LCS, flea markets, yard sales, half-price books, wherever you're doing your cheap comic book hunting. These are some titles I think you should keep an eye out for because they might be buried in there based off of some of the recent news, rumors, announcements, and most importantly, things going on in the actual comics that came out recently. Hopefully you're enjoying this series as well as everything else here on the channel. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure that you like, you subscribe, you hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. We are only a couple dozen away from hitting 5K, so we are going to beat my Memorial Day estimate, I think. And I know what you're thinking. Is he wearing the same shirt that he wore yesterday doing the Hot 10? The answer is no. This has Gravity Man on it. Yesterday, started off with Windman in the top spot. Difference between Mega Man 6 and Mega Man 5. I have a bunch of these, in case you haven't noticed. But with that all said, if you just want to see this week's rundown on Dollar Bin Books, don't worry, I got you covered. Just hang out for a few seconds after the intro, and I will be right back. All right, so let's start it off as we always do, right with the comics. That's right. We're just going to run through a bunch of comics that came out not only this week, but last week as well, because I didn't get to do a Dollar Bin Digging video last weekend, unfortunately. Just too busy, daily, regular life gets in the way, right? So I'm going to try to play a little bit of catch up and cover a couple of books from last week and then a few books from this week and maybe a little bit of an oversized episode here. So hopefully you don't mind me playing a little bit of catch up here. So with that said, let's first look at last week and start off with Amazing Spider-Man #2. I didn't want a renumbering, but I am enjoying the series so far. I am a fan of Amazing Spider-Man, but at the same time, I've also freely admitted, regardless of how bad the title could be, I would still be collecting it because I am an OCD collector and my run will not break. I will keep it going until I'm not going anymore. But with that said, in this particular issue that came out last week, I'm going to look at a character here that popped up right at the end. Again, this is like 2 weeks old now, so it's not really spoiler news, but Itsy Bitsy shows up again here at the end, looking like she's about to take care of Rhino as Peter's doing some investigating here. Itsy Bitsy's a character that got a lot of attention when she first appeared, because she first appeared in that Spider-Man Deadpool team-up book, which was really just about Marvel just trying to bank in and cash in on two of their more popular characters, throwing them in a title together. I don't know, that's how I always saw it, and this was a character created during that run that, again, got a lot of attention, but hasn't seen a lot of usage since then. But here we go with Itsy Bitsy coming back. Maybe she'll get more attention this time out. Realistically, if we're going to look at it and you read this books and you read the storyline, issue 8 from August of 2016 would technically be her first appearance here at the very, very end as she's about to undergo her procedure here. Yes, she's not all spidered up or anything like that yet, but that is the character, and she is the character who's going to be Itsy Bitsy. So if you want to be a completionist and a collector, you want to get both, but here it is with issue 8 right at the tail end, to be continued. Again, not an expensive book. One you can go find out there. This is part of that Spider-Man Deadpool run, issue 8. You can see, yes, copies have sold for less than cover. I mean, this is a $3.99 cover after all, so there are copies selling for $3.50, $3.84, $8 here and there. Asking prices $4, $7, $10. I'm just telling you, you don't have to go shopping online. Go dig in a box at your LCS or at a half-price books, yard sales, wherever you do your cheap comic hunting. I know it's different all over. It's not apples to apples the same. A lot of people have to really work to go and find comics, and some people don't have places to go and dig, and online might be the only outlet, which is also fine. Just try to find different little places, save your little save searches, so maybe you find little shops that not everybody knows about with online stores, whatever it may be. Go do your digging. See if you can find this for cheap. It's just a fun little book that starts in her first appearance, which continues into the next issue, issue 9, with her on the cover. And this was the one I think that got a bit of attention back in the day. Brand new villain character in Spider-Man Deadpool, and it quickly became like a $15, $20 book. This is Itsy Bitsy here, September 2016. She shows up again in this issue. Again, not a lot of books that have her in there. So a lot of the images you see are the same panels because she doesn't have a lot of panels with not that many appearances. But with that said, this book, again, it hit the spec cycle before, so it had some attention. Now it's kind of in that weird state, that weird limbo state where some people don't want to let go of those old prices and other people don't care. As copies could sell for $3, $7, $3.75. But then again, you see listings where they still want $10 to $15 for this thing, and others can say, I'm happy just getting $4.79 for this. Print runs were pretty decent because, again, it was a popular title featuring two popular characters. So there should be plenty of these out there. They shouldn't be that hard to find. So go out there and go do some digging. Now, that was ASM from last week. We're going to stick at Marvel for last week and look at issue 25 of Avengers, part of the One World Under Doom storyline. Not loving One World Under Doom personally. It just feels like I just can't wait for it to be over, honestly. But here we go. Next part. And inside this book, we're not going to have like a bunch of major appearances. These are more just kind of minor things. And we're going to work off of this one panel here that shows a couple of the villains I want to talk about. And first up, we're going to start up there in the back and start with this guy. This is this is Dread Knight. Been around a while, has a pretty cool look. I mean, you give a guy a sword, a big Thor helmet, it looks like an evil Black Knight. He's been around for a while. You can go and dig as far back as Invincible Iron Man 101 back in 1977. This book is older than I am. Yes, it's featuring the Monster of Frankenstein on the cover, but also inside this book, you do get the first appearance of the Dread Knight right here at the end, kind of teasing his appearance in the next issue. That's how they used to do things back in the day. A lot of characters introduced, final page splashes to then show up in the next issue. That's how it worked. Kind of a cliffhanger. That's how it worked back in the day. So when we get in these arguments of cameo and what's first full and all that, I hate the semantics of it all. I'm just pointing out what's inside this actual book. So 101, he's there saying his name on his horse demon thing, whatever you want to call it, flying right in to face off against Iron Man. I know what you're thinking. 1977, this book's probably also expensive. Really isn't that bad. Look, copy sold even online for 99 cents. And then you got other copies going for close to $10 with some recent sales. And asking prices are in that kind of $8 to $10, $11 kind of range on the lower end. Yes, higher grades could ask for higher prices. And if you find a nicer copy, obviously, you're probably going to get a better premium if you try to sell it or flip it. Just pointing out that there are some baseline prices, and not every book needs to be a perfect 9.8 candidate for you to go and pick it up. Sometimes we can get an old, well-loved book just for the sake of owning it and reading it until we can upgrade and get a better copy later. Just keep that in mind. With that said, there's Dread Knight. We're going to work around the table here and see right up in front, we're going to talk about this lady next. This is Exterminatrix, if I'm saying her name right. She's been around a little bit, just the past couple of decades, going back to Marvel Boy #1 in the year 2000. Yes, this book has also got a bit of interest over the years because of Marvel Boy. The Marvel Boy appearances, we expected to see him appear in some sort of MCU or Disney Plus project a few times. There have been rumors. But also in this book, we get a quick, and I guess we can go with the semantics of it, but I will tell you, she's only in one panel and she's in the shadows and they don't really name her. There she is here. She appears more throughout the storyline in the next few issues, more in issue 2, obviously. But this is her with her dad, Midas, and they're talking about it. She's kind of eyeballing out. Is it Novar? Was that who Marvel Boy was? I think it was Novar. Anyway, she's looking for weaknesses, etc. There she is in shadow, not in costume yet, but that's her. So with that, that's her appearance. This book, again, has had some interest back in the day, but you can still find copies for $5 selling here. And then $10, you can get all 6 issues of the miniseries. Then copies listed. Some are still holding on to the good old days, looking for $14, $18 for the first appearance of Novar. But other people are more practical and very fine copy listed for $5. That's more what you're going to see these days because, again, there's no heat on the character, no news to kind of base anything off of. So it's kind of pulled back down into that cheaper kind of range. And that's kind of what things happen. Everything's kind of cyclical. Everything goes, around and around and up and down, like a carousel, like that old Happy Gilmore bit from Kevin Nealon. With that, it's true, though, especially with comics. Things get hot, then they get forgotten about. They get forgotten about to the point where shops don't even pull them when they get new collections in and they just end up in the dollar bin fodder. It happens. With that, let's keep working around the table for this issue, and we'll go over to this guy back here in the corner, and that is Madcap. more of a sillier character, I would think. Well, not so much sillier. He does have a more flamboyant outfit here. He's not quite slapstick, but Madcap is a more interesting character in that way. He's been around actually for a while, since Captain America. First appeared in Captain America back in 1987, issue 307. During the Nomad days, so we had the Steve Rogers and Nomad kind of stuff, and then you see it teased right there on the front, the maniacal menace of Madcap. A lot of alliteration there. But alliteration aside, we don't see him on the cover. We see him a bit later in the book, in the pages here, and he's kind of introducing himself. Hey, there he is. Cool. Again, a book that's not that pricey, but you can find some outliers. Of course, again, grade sensitive, but copies can sell for $2 at auction, or they could go for like $8 to $10. Just some buy it nows. Listings $5, $8. Again, your $5 range you're going to be talking about are about fine copies, maybe up to very fine. Those higher grade copies are probably going to be closer to 10 or 15. It's how things work, as you know. But grading is also subjective. Sometimes a shop might grade something or price something on the lower end, and you look at it and you go, you know what? This book ain't that bad. Or if you're a presser or no oppressor, you can press some of these things out. Just saying. With that all said, let's keep it rolling. That was Avengers. Let's go over to DC for last week really quickly and talk about Metamorpho, the Element Man. Yes, Metamorpho, issue 5. Not currently reading this title, and as you can tell from the cover of this book, there apparently are a lot of Metamorpho characters. So we're going to talk about a few of them right now. Right here on the cover, but also in the interior splash page, I kind of trimmed it down. There are 2 more on the top and bottom of the more popular. Like, we're not going to say Rex Mason. You're not going to find the first Metamorpho in a dollar box. You're probably also not going to find the first Element Gal in a dollar box. So is that Metamorpho 10? It's become a little bit pricier over the years, but we can kind of get close to that line with some of these characters. And we're going to start off here with Element Woman. I know, we're doing the semantics of woman, gal, girl. Hey, they had to spread the names around. But this character is a little bit different in that she's actually a newer creation. So Element Woman here, as you can see with a more updated design, she actually first appeared in Flashpoint #1. And yes, this book has gotten hot before. You remember the Flash movie? It was all the rage for a stretch. These days, it's kind of fallen back down into cheaper boxes because, 1, Flash movie's over. Who knows when we're going to get another Flash film? And 2, they're probably not going to adapt this storyline again anytime soon. And 3, they made a lot of these. This was a popular event title for them. So despite the fact that this did get pricey for a stretch, there are a lot of copies of this book out there. So with that said, back in July of 2011, we see throughout the book, she's kind of in there with a bunch of these other characters. This is Element Gal showing up here. So again, she's in multiple panels. This isn't like the only panel. She's in other places inside the book. Not a huge part of the book, but a minor one. But also remember, Flashpoint, you're dealing with alternate timelines and alternate universes, etc. So is this technically the same character that we see later on? Kind of, sort of, maybe. But with that said, we're still going to run down her first appearance pricing, and you can see here, yes, copy sold for $1, even online. And it's also sold for almost $20 because Thomas Wayne. Again, people buy things for different reasons. People list and sell things for different reasons. So you can sometimes take advantage on how those listings are placed. And then you can see the whole Flashpoint event, $40. Those are sales. Asking prices could be $9, could be $11, could be $18. Kind of all over the place. Point being, go dig because there are a lot of these out there. Now, following this event, DC got kind of redone basically, and we got a whole new updated universe. So with that, let's look at the New 52 era of DC. And inside this issue of Justice League, we kind of get introduced to the character again as she's kind of drafted to be part of Cyborg's updated Justice League to help out fight Ocean Master because the OG team just couldn't handle it apparently. But inside this issue from 2013, we do see Element Gal getting drafted into this squad. So is this the same character? Yes, kind of, sort of, merging universes, etc. But thought this was an interesting book to point out because she kind of just disappeared for a while after that Flashpoint appearance. And this is kind of her coming back into the fold, into the larger DCU. So just a fun book to go and dig. Not really a key in any way like that. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm not trying to create keys. I'm just trying to talk about comics and some fun stuff that you can go and find, not only for, investment purposes, but just to read, because it is fun to read these things when you actually open them up. But With that said, this book is super cheap. You can find this in a lot of places. My comic shop's got copies for less than $3 or less than $4. You got the entire, not entire run, but there's a lot of half a dozen issues of the Justice League run there for only $6. So that's $1 an issue. Copy sold individually for $2. Listings $1.79, $3.99, $4.99. Point being, it's not a pricey one. You can find it out there. With that said, let's keep it going down the list of these Metamorpho characters and look at Metamorpho, also known as the Element Hound or the Element Dog. So we're going to talk about this character next. Granted, I think there's been multiple dogs over the years that have gotten the powers of Element Man, but we're going to look at this one here. Element Dog. First appearance that I could see actually goes back to Wednesday Comics. You remember when DC did this? The newspapers? They sold you a dozen newspapers. Granted, for cheap. I mean, they weren't that cheap. It was $3.99. But they put comics in old school newspapers. Yeah. I don't know how these are going to hold up over time, but I got the whole run of them because it was kind of a fun idea for a stretch. You open it up, read through a newspaper, and you're reading your comic strips. This is 2009, September 2009, and inside this run, we did have a little Element Man by Mike Allred. So here's the return of Element Dog. I don't know what he's returning from because I don't remember appearance before this. If you guys know it, please put it in the comments down below. I just, on my quick little putting things together, this is what I found to go and draw back for Element Dog. With that said, this book, or not book, this newspaper is kind of sold mostly in lots. You don't see a lot of individual sales, even though this is the final one, the final issue, final installment. Most of the times you see them sell in runs, as you can see there, and they're not expensive. $4 for all 12, $5 for all 12. Yes, 11 and 12 together, maybe $3. Individual copies are looking for $4 to $7. But point being, you can find the whole run for like $5 to $10, and it's 12 issues. So just consider that. Or, like I said, you're digging in boxes. You can find these. It's still you can still bag and board these because they're folded in a size that would still fit in your comic, in your comic bags and boards. So they might be out there. But following this appearance, and if you don't want to consider this a comic, you want to make an argument that, well, it's a newspaper, it's a news strip, not a comic book. Okay, fine. We can take that. You can take that route too, and take that angle, and then look at Terrifics. The Terrifics number 5. Yes, much later. This is in 2009, but yes. Inside this book, we do get another Element Dog. So we can look at this book here if you want. Is that an Element Dog? Yeah, it is. So we got another one here. Another book that does not sell for all that much. In fact, I couldn't even find any individual sales or any sales that I could tie to this book at all. So I just left it blank. Listings, $1.50, $2, $3. Point being, it's less than cover. And that's what we're talking about here. So there you go, another option for your Element Dog. As to which Element Dog we're looking at here, I'm not sure. I'm not keeping up on my Metamorpho reading, so I don't know specifically which Element Dog is which. Just pointing out some Element Dog appearances for fun. But a character that actually does have an actual name that we can draw back to an actual first appearance that we will not dispute, that's Algon. Not Calgon, take me away, but Algon, the Element King. Okay, so Element King. Cool skull face. Looks more like a baddie, but he's working with the side of good right here, I guess. Algon. The ancient elemental is free. Yeah. They did face off way back in the original Metamorpho run. In fact, in the final issue of that Metamorpho run, number 17, is what we're looking at here. So April of 1968. And I know what you're thinking. 1968, you're not going to find this in a cheap box. Well, you can. You can find a lot of stuff out there if you go digging enough. But there is Algon here inside this story. And yeah, they face off with Element Man, and I think Element Girl is in here too. Some Element people fighting it out. Point being, even online, you can still see copies can sell for cheap. $5, $6. Not an expensive book. Copies listed, $5.99, $9, $3.29. Again, condition sensitive, obviously. The lower grade copies are going to have the lower prices. The higher grades are going to have the higher prices. Who knows what you might stumble across when you're out there digging? Point being, just a book to know and to be aware of. And as I mentioned, in this Metamorpho run, also keep an eye on number 10, because that is the first Element Gal, I think, or Element Girl. Whatever. Another version of the character, female version of the character to keep an eye on. That one's gotten a little bit pricier than, say, this one. With that said, one more book for last week before we move on. See, we're already 20 minutes in. I didn't even get to this week's books. Last week's books. Rob Liefeld, Youngblood Deluxe. All new words in script. Same old art, recolored, to be fair, but all new words. Cool. They even reordered some panels and pages here, mixing up from other issues I noticed. And actually, because I did read this, much to my dismay, I read this. But here's just an example. We've got the old original. You can see some of the text here. Some of it's cleared away where there's less, some of them a bit more. Then you got the old school where he says things like, this character's jumping out saying, this gets me pumped. He doesn't say it in the new version because that's kind of a silly thing to yell when you're jumping at somebody to attack them, that this gets me pumped. Nor is the stupid Schwarzenegger pun here too rare for my taste. They cut that out from the original. Now, Sentinel, are we close? I guess it's being more on point with the storyline to progress. That isn't to say the new version is better. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just pointing out that there is a difference. And here we go with a little bit more. A lot more words on the new version, but that doesn't mean they're all better. It is what it is. But my real point is that despite the fact that you can get this new deluxe version with new words and new script, you could still find that other one. I mean, Jesus, you know, Youngblood 1 is not that hard of a book to find. So you could still go and dig from this treasure from 1992. And I use treasure mockingly because, again, I know what it is. I was excited when it came out, but I was also a kid. So reading things like this gets me pumped was fine back then. As an adult, it doesn't hold the same. Just saying. Doesn't hold. Granted, a lot of the old school Image books don't actually hold up upon scrutiny. And as much as I love Jim Lee and Wildcats, we all know what they were doing back then. They were doing knockoffs of all their old teams and basically hedging old ideas and just kind of repackaging them and selling them as their own. It is what it is. All right. With that, 1992, Youngblood #1. $2.50, $1.99, $1.99. As I said, not a pricey book. Copies listed, $2, $2.29, $3.25. Yeah, it's a flip book, so there's a different cover on the other side, but point being, you could find the original out there, and it might be worth a giggle just to go and pick it up if you haven't read it in a while, because it was something. It was something to reread. With that said, before we move on to this week's books, I want to remind all you out there to give Whatnot a try. If you haven't already, first-time users, use my link down below to sign up. Get the app, download it onto your phone, get yourselves a free $15 to spend on your first purchase with whomever you want on whatever you want. No strings attached. You get $15 just for trying it out on your first purchase. You help out the channel. You got $15 to spend on something, so there's really no harm in giving it a try. I'm going to try to make my way back there to do another sale soon. I did one just a week or so ago where we had those Daredevil packs. No, I don't have any more Daredevil packs left, but this is one of the bags left over, so I had it handy to kind of show it off that, yeah, I've been on there. And I'll be on there again as soon as I can. But with that said, use the link. Get that free money if you haven't tried it already. And with that, let's get on to the new books this week and try to keep it rolling here. So, new this week, we got Fantastic Four #31. Continuing again, One World Under Doom. Inside this book, we got another villain we could talk about here. Starting us off here in the background, we have Devos the Devastator. Granted, he doesn't play a big role in this book. That's not the point. Sometimes with these little books, they've put a little throwaway character in as just kind of like an opening salvo part of the story. And it's just kind of fun to look back at this character's history and their first appearances. That's kind of what I like doing. And that's what we're doing here. So here we go with Devos the Devastator. Devos, maybe? I don't know. He is a Devastator after all. But Devos, whatever we're going to call him, there he is. A couple of different looks over the years. He is an original Fantastic Four villain from 1991, back in issue 359, and it's Enter the Devastator. And we see the backside of him facing off against the Fantastic Four at the time. And yes, a Devastator in the terms of it looks like one of those Thor things, Thor villains. With that said, inside this book, here we get a better look at him. So it's Devos the Devastator. Cool. Not an expensive book, as you might guess. He is not the biggest character in the world, nor do I think he should be. Nor do I think this should be an expensive book, or a key for that matter. It's just a fun first appearance. Fun first appearance of a character that showed up this week. And you can find his first for $2, $5, $7. Copies listed $2, $2.50. Yes, very fine copy for $2.50. Ain't bad. And then up to $10 for a high grade one. Cool. And you can see some of these will list first appearance. One has it, the Devastator. Another one doesn't say anything about who's in there. And this last one says first appearance, high grade. but it doesn't even say who the character's first appearance is. It's just like, there's a first. It's not really important who it is. Hey, people sell things all different ways. With that said, let's keep it going and check out another book that came out this week. And this is Kid Juggernaut #1. This basically collects those online Kid Juggernaut comics, Marvel, whatever. They have their little online only kind of features. And so occasionally they will collect them and print them into like a 1-volume issue. And that's what they did here. So this is Kid Juggernaut #1. And inside this book, we're not here to talk about Kid Juggernaut, but one of the older Juggernauts here, kind of telling a bit of history with that helmet of Sidorak or whatever. Before Kane Marco gets it, it was held by this guy here. And yes, we got to go through a lot of different versions of. They even try to explain it a little bit when he had a Korean name, was like Moon Ho something, and then he eventually take a Japanese name of Taiko. It was supposed to be the same character, but that's who we're talking about here. Basically, is earlier version of the Juggernaut, this Jin Taiko. That's the name we're gonna go with for now. But there he is. Different look for the helmet. It's got a cool little mask, right? Samurai style. First showed up back in New Excalibur, issue 15 from 2007. And again, there's a little bit of backstory. Juggernaut fighting a Juggernaut. Yeah, it is what it is. Point being, it's just a weird, strange first appearance to go back and dig for, right? I found one sale of this book, and it was for $2.70 from my comic shop. Copies listed, $1.79, $2.25, and up to $8.99. Granted, the $8.99 only has a $1.99 delivery charge, so they're kind of like hedging their costs there between the two. But point being, it's a pretty cheap book. It's probably one you could find out there. If you want a cool little throwback history of the Juggernaut, if you didn't know that there was a prior Juggernaut to Kane Marco, this was kind of a retcon thing that they threw out there, 15 years ago or so. Go check it out and give it a read. Also, book to talk about this week, we have Red Hulk #3. Also part of the One World Under Doom event, because most things are tied into One World Under Doom. And inside, and I've actually, this title has not been that bad. I was surprised that it was actually a decent little bit of a read. At least the first issue was. I didn't get to hear yet, but we'll see. Inside it, though, I mean, I didn't get the full-on read, but we do see Dr. Simon Riker also in here. Kind of ties back to Deathlock, and we do have Machine Man in this series as well. Both Deathlock and Machine Man have some pricier first appearances from back in the 70s, so chances of finding those are pretty slim, but we can still talk about Riker here. And again, Riker has some ties to the original Deathlock, and with that, we'll point out that his origin got kind of revamped, retold throughout the years. So, 2 versions of him, one in the Deathlock original first appearance, and then they kind of brought him back into the mainstream universe with the a villain's book. You'll see here in a second. Point being, OG Deathlock book, Astonishing Tales 25. As I mentioned, this is a pricier one. You're not going to find this for $1, or the chances of you finding this for $1 are slim, so I'm not telling you to go and dig for it or hope for it, because you're probably not going to find it for that cheap. But I do want you to know that is the first appearance of Deathlock, and there is a version of Riker in this book. The other option I'm giving you is the revamped 616 retelling of his origin, which was part of this supervillain team-up book, which is something that often gets just tucked away in those cheaper boxes as Marvel overstock of some of these older titles that not a lot of people collect these days. Supervillain team-ups. Dr. Doom and Namor. I mean, cool. Issue 4, 1976. And inside this book, we kind of get a retelling of Stryker's origin here. So that's why I'm bringing this book up as an option for you to go and keep an eye out for. Even this one could do all right, depending on condition. Copies selling for $5, $8, $13. Copies listed $25 and $40, but also for only $4. Like I said, it's crapshoot. Crapshoot what you might find out there sometimes. And again, condition sensitive. And once again, somebody's selling first appearance, but we're not telling you who. With that, before we wrap up, I still got a couple of more for you. I got one more reminder for you guys out there. If you need, supplies for your collectibles, you need bags, you need boards, boxes, use my code RENA10 over at BCW. There is a link down below as well that you can use, but either way, however you get there, use my code RENA10 to save 10% off your entire order. Get yourself your bags, your boards for your Silver Age books, your Modern Age books, Golden Age books. They got all different shapes, sizes, etc. for whatever books you need them for. We got long boxes and short boxes, CGC boxes, top loaders, pages for cards, pretty much anything you need to keep your comics or collectibles safe. There's a product over there that you can get and save yourself some money while you're buying them. So use that code RENA10 for 10% off. Now, moving on to our final couple of books. We're going over to DC now with this week's books. That was the Marvel stuff for this week. Now we'll do some DC to kind of wrap us up for the day. Question, All Along the Watchtower, number 6. End of the line, last issue of this miniseries, which again wasn't half bad. Big bad of the series. If you didn't know by now, it's not a surprise. It's been revealed earlier on, but it's Cyborg Superman. Cyborg Superman taking over the Watchtower, or trying to take over the Watchtower, and a bunch of our heroes, etc. There we go. Pretty cool look there. Cyborg Superman is a villain we've seen forever. You guys remember him going back to the death of Superman and then the return of Superman when we had 4 options. We had John Steele, we had Superboy, we had the Eradicator, and we had the Cyborg Superman version. So with that, let's look at that book when we got the return of all these guys from Adventures of Superman number 500. This is the regular edition. There's a collector's edition that was polybagged, that big white bag. You can get those still polybagged in some cases. Inside this book, yeah, we get an introduction to all of these characters. But here we go, Cyborg Superman in the back end of the book. I think he was the last reveal of the group. And that's him right there. So with that, this book, again, not a pricey book, heavily printed. Copies sold for $1 or up to $5. Copies listed. See, there's a polybag one of a collector's edition for all of $4. Meanwhile, you can get this one for $1.79 or $1.50. Not a pricey book. Something you can get to go and collect if you want to go back to those days. I was already buying comics back in those days. I go back that far with my collection, so I know there's a lot of newer collectors and readers, etc. out there. Some of this stuff is new to you guys, and some of us older collectors look at this goofy 90s stuff and go, man, how many of these we saw back in the day? The Clone Saga, Nightfall, Bane breaking Batman's back, Superman dying, Hal Jordan going crazy, all the crazy events that they tried to turn our comic book world upside down from back in the 90s. Yeah, some people that weren't on board back then. So they can go and find these books for cheap now. But this is Cyborg Superman. But Cyborg Superman didn't just come out of nowhere. He is actually another character that they kind of retconned into being Hank Henshaw, or Henry Henshaw, who was a character introduced a little bit before. Almost like a Fantastic Four-ish kind of origin knockoff in the DC universe. Some astronauts went up and they got some powers. And yeah, Adventures of Superman 466 is the first appearance of Hank Henshaw. I know some places will mention the issue before, 465, and they do have the shuttle that he was on, but I didn't see Hank or Henry in any of the panels. I saw some of his crew there, but I didn't see him. So unless you pointed out to me where he was in those couple of panels of his team in their space shuttle, I didn't see him in that issue. I saw his team, but not him. So that would have been 465. Some of the people buy these together as like a package, but 466, I mean, he is on the cover with the white hair, almost like the Reed Richards of the group. March of 1990. This is where we're getting introduced to him here. And then, as I said, you can see his team. Oh my God, there's your Johnny Storm knockoff. We got a Sue Storm. And then the pilot also turns into like a big monsterish elemental thing, kind of like the Thing. So you see kind of the Fantastic Four threads being woven into this story. But here is our Henshaw. This book, again, not that pricey. You could find it out there. $4, $3, $8. Copies have sold for. Listings, $2, $7, up to $12. It is what it is. And again, you can go look for 465 as well to get the storyline of their creation. But I'm telling you, I didn't see Henshaw in there. That's all. But if you did, point them out to me. I'd be happy to see it. But I just couldn't find them when I was reading it. All right, moving on. One more book. One more DC book for this week to kind of go over. And we're going to stick with the Justice League Unlimited. This is kind of tying into what Cyborg Superman was doing all along the Watchtower, but Justice League Unlimited, in the sense that we're just tying in the team of Justice League Unlimited. The storyline's not really connected, but point being, issue 6 came out this week. And inside this issue, we got some flashes of some old villains just kind of thrown in for fun. And as I mentioned, I like looking up some of this stuff sometimes. I like doing the research and saying, hey, they had a little throwaway villain that they put in here, or a flashback of a fight with some throwaway villain. And I like to look them up and see their first. So that's what we're doing here with this guy. He got a couple of pages of content here in this current issue, fighting Airwave. But we are talking about, was it Deathbolt? Yeah, Deathbolt. The name's Deathbolt. Remember it. Write it down. Take a picture. I don't give a. Anyway, Deathbolt. He first appeared in All-Star Squadron number 21. Some fun All-Star Squadron books out there. You can get first Power Girl and a couple other characters showing up in that run. But for Deathbolt, his appearance in 1983 is in this issue, and it is that, hey, that's my name, don't forget it. This is how he introduces himself. Kind of cool. With that, tough guy Deathbolt, you can find his book for $1 in a lot of a few issues for $2.75, or a whole run of All-Star, well, not a whole run, but a good chunk of the run for $30 back there. Not bad. Listings, well, it's also not asking for too much. You can find, your $8 to $10 copies, but there are also $2 copies. Granted, it might be very good, might not be in the greatest of shape, but once again, higher grade, higher prices. All right, so he was one of the throwaway villains inside this Justice League book, and then we got a couple more in this kind of flashback fight panel here. So, boom, right there. This guy, we're going to start off again. We're following Airwave, doing a little bit of this throwdown fights with the Justice League. This guy here is the Electrocutioner. Fun name, right? Electrocutioner. Now, the first Electrocutioner actually appeared back in 1981 in Batman. Batman villain, Batman 331. Electrocutioner. Name's right there on the front. That's also him on the front. Bit of a different look from what we get on the inside, but here he is on the inside of the book. Almost has like the Shroud from the Watchmen. It's got that kind of look to him. Point being, this is the first Electrocutioner, and this character actually doesn't make it. This character eventually dies. But this was him. This is the first run at the character. Classic Batman book, so it's going to be a little pricier. We're looking at copies $10. Could go up to 20 or 25. Because again, it's just classic Batman, and it's the first appearance of a villain, despite the fact that the villain's not that big a deal. Available copies, 13, 15, 18 bucks. Not too bad. But in case you stumble across an old Batman run, just give it a look-see. But that's not the Electrocutioner I'm here to talk about, because again, that guy died. His brother takes up the mantle years later in Detective Comics 644 in 1992. Now, this one you probably can find in those cheap boxes pretty easily. And this is the guy we're looking at here in this red and black outfit. Boom. Like I said, it's his brother. I forget what his name is. It's like Luther or something. Anyway, point being, it's not that important. This book is also pretty cheap. $2, $6. Copies have sold for it. Listings, $7, $8, but also as cheap as $2.99. Granted, fine to very fine. Again, condition sensitive. The other one's looking $9 for an 8.0. It's up to you. I'm telling you, go dig in a box, see what you could find in the dollar bins. With that said, one more villain in that same panel as the Electrocutioner. This guy back here. No, that's not Clayface. This is a different guy. This is Plasmus, apparently. So Plasmus, new Teen Titans villain, or I should say just Teen Titans villain. Plasmus been around again, like Electrocutioner for a while. 1981, new Teen Titans, number 14. Right here, he's part of the crew of the new Brotherhood of Evil lives again. So the Brotherhood of Evil on the DC side of things, not the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, or the Brotherhood or the Masters of Evil, also on the Marvel side of things. I mean, they kind of leverage the same ideas and same kind of names. But yeah, this crusty looking dude over on the side, that's Plasmus. Cheap book, again, nothing too expensive. I couldn't even find it really selling. Individually, I found one sale for $3.50. Meanwhile, I saw a lot of a chunk of the run for $2, and then $4.71 for a pair of books. Copies listed $2.99, as high as $10. And it's not just for Plasmus; he's just part of it. But you do get the origin of Doom Patrol in here. It's kind of like a retelling of the origin, because we got Beast Boy, and we get some of that action in there, and then we got the Brotherhood of Evil. Cool. With that said, that was an oversized edition to kind of play catch up. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I did actually cut a couple of books I had planned to talk about because I thought I had enough. And after my voice is going on me, I think I did have enough. So once again, thanks for stopping by and for all the support. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Keep telling those friends so we can get to that 5K mark. Why do I care about 5K so much? I don't know. It's just a number. We're going to keep going from there and look for 6K and 7. I'm just having fun doing this, and hopefully you're having fun on this ride with me. And again, I'm going to have the article, try to get the article up over on comicbookinvest.com as soon as I can. It's just, this is a busy time for me. In fact, I got to get ready to go see Thunderbolts in a few minutes, and then take my extended family out to dinner tonight and have some fun. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you all later with some more content. All right.